So we start off with the ball.
I've put chalk lines around it to try and get it reasonably accurate. It's a hollow metal mild steel sphere.
Pole.
Weld that onto the main stem of the flower. I now gruesomely dehead some 5-inch round wire nails, but they form the sort of stamen of the flower, as it were. I'm now delicately shaping them using the appropriate tool. Precision engineering here. A lot of this will become more obvious a bit later on.
So with these bent ones, we can then...
These I will now tack to the ball and start to form what I would call the crown of all the stamen. Bending some slightly more curvily, they'll follow and sort of mimic the curvature of the sphere. The idea being that these nails kind of overlap each other enough that you don't really see where they've been tacked on. As you'll see, I'll start tacking them on and slowly building up that crown. Just using a simple MIG welder, just tacking them at this point. Trying to get them reasonably accurate and reasonably symmetrical. The final look lends itself to that, I think. So here we are, just grinding off the tails that I don't need. A bit more welding. It's a rinse and repeat sort of process, as you can see. And the idea, as I say, is to try and hide the welds of the ones before as best you can. It's not an exact science, but that's the aim. There you can see some of the more curvy ones going on to follow the sphere. Tack them again, make sure they're good and secure, and grind off the tails. You end up with something like that after a few hours work and a lot of wiggling about. Here I am now using the plasma cutter, and I'm cutting out the petals using an MDF template, and then I'll grind up the edges and tidy them up a bit to make them all nice and pretty. It's quite simple work. It's on fairly thin mild steel plate, it goes quite quickly. I've got 5 different shapes and sizes here, just to give a bit of interest to the overall flower, give a bit of almost realism, if you like. I start tacking on the petals, again keeping it fairly symmetrical and fairly regular, somewhat like nature. It's definitely not OCD. Grinding off excess welds, wearing the apron and the gloves and the face mask, all the PPE you could ever need, and we end up with something like that. I'm now putting on the lower petals, which are much smaller. Ultimately, that's where we end up. Last minute adjustments, very delicate, as you can see, using a precision instrument, and we end up with this. Pretty much on for painting. It's been primered and obviously let to dry. Now I'm starting with the airbrush. And really it's a free-for-all here, whatever you like. You can try and mimic nature, but that's horrendously difficult most of the time. So I kind of go with the colours that make sense at the time. Try and blend them in nicely, a few little accent colours just to try and highlight. And obviously being careful to protect the lower petals. Then curve up the first layer of petals, being gentle not to crack the paint. As you can see, I've done the tips on the inside in a light orange already, and then it's much easier to do the outsides of the larger petals, as you see here. Build up different colours, different areas, careful to protect the leaves below so you don't have to keep over painting, and then carry on airbrushing. Obviously it's easier to do the outsides, as it were, of these once they're bent up. And again, continue round, change the colours, have a little play. It's kind of fun. You know, the beauty of this, the excitement for me, is it's anything you want it to be. Thank you.